Hi, everyone. I am Arlaana.
I'm Carla.
And we are
Don't Mess with the Mommas.
MOMMAS, with our motto,
You are the protagonist of your life, not the victim of your destiny.
And today we are doing episode 39, and this is called The Soul of Justice. Very, very, very important topic, especially now in the times in which we live. And one of my favorite subjects when I was studying at Columbia University graduate school was international law. Mm-hmm. And when I read the preface of the textbook, which was very large indeed, and it's one of the textbooks I saved over the years, I realized that law, especially in this country and internationally for the most part, is based on a system of reward and punishment. And really, is that the correct way? And in this episode, we are going to talk about, historically, the great philosophers of our time, how they looked at justice and how to create a civilized society where the people flourish. We've come a long way from that, where now it seems like money dominates and the lack of respect for individual lives is something really non-existent these days, and it's more retribution or anger or what the conditions that we don't need to have in our society. And I have to also, before I turn it over to Carla, Carla will share a lot of these philosophers and I will as well. We have one of our members, our young woman, who did something remarkable. Her father was in prison for having committed murder, and it was unjust. He did not commit murder, and he was in prison for life. And she chanted Nam Myoho Renge Kyo so many hours to see absolute justice. And because of that, her life became so strong where she could really encourage thousands and thousands of people because she had to overcome so much. And the result was he was released and totally exonerated from that false crime. And even today, when we know people are innocent, they still go ahead and execute them or continue life imprisonment. So we've come a long way from the original intentions of our amazing philosophers of our time historically, and way, way before we even had the United States of America. So Carla, you want to share some of these philosophers with us?
Well, I wanted to know, I'm a person who loves words, okay?
Yes.
And sometimes we don't know exactly what the words mean.
Yes.
Or where they come from. So I wanted to find out where did justice come from? But just is the root word, and it meant law. Mm-hmm. And from Roman times, or antiquity, the law came from, cosmic law. Like it was someplace out there, and, I guess if you were a good person, you got good things, and if you were bad, you got bad things. But anyway, it changed over time. All right, so then it went from being out there to being the gods and man-made laws. And then it went from gods and men to just men, okay? So it had to do with the cosmos, fairness, harmony. So those were the underlying principles. And each philosopher had their spin on it. Plato was about harmony. Mm-hmm. Then Aristotle had a different point of view, and his was giving each person their due. And then upholding justice was Hobbes and Locke, and Rousseau was more or less, what was good for the collective. And then we get into maximizing utility, which was Mill, what was going to be the best for the most people. But then for the most people, who are the people that you're leaving out? Don't they deserve justice? Okay, and then there were fairness, fairness, that would be like critical theories. Then there was the tool of the indigenous people. They saw it as making people, healing the harm. If there was some harm done, then the whole community had to, become back into balance. Things had to be made right between the parties that there was friction, and then it had to work with the community. So everything was healed. In Buddhism, it was about compassion and relieving suffering. So these are just a few of the things that philosophers have said, but it seems as though we are constantly reviewing and making better or correcting things that have maybe not been paid attention to. So there's distributive justice, which, giving everybody what they need, balance. So really, justice seems to be like living a good life. Now, Confucius, he thought that you had to have harmony. And if you didn't have harmony, then you're going to have chaos. So we want to have harmony instead of chaos.
So I think, and what I didn't complete the thought I was saying earlier, is that I envisioned having a justice system based on the law of cause and effect.
Oh, yes.
Because that's what we absolutely believe as Buddhists, and it exists. I mean, even if you don't agree with it, just like the law of gravity, if you're going upstairs and jumping, you say, well, I don't really believe in the law of gravity, but you're going down. Law of cause and effect is very strict. Whether it appears that effect in your life immediately, and that's a great benefit to see the effects, so you stop making these horrible causes in your life, or whether it appears in another lifetime or in your children or whatever it is. But I said, wouldn't it be amazing if we had this, people believed in this law of cause and effect, where people took full responsibility for their actions. And that leads us to another discussion that when I was studying my doctoral studies in peace studies, and I was going to do my dissertation on dialogue as the most expedient means to solve world conflict, which it's true. You don't solve anything without dialogue, and really listening to the other person's point of view, even if you totally disagree with them. But there was, in South Africa, I was really fascinated because they had many ways of trying to overcome this terrible history of apartheid, and they had like restorative justice, reconciliatory justice, where they really dialogued and tried to bring people together. Now, of course, people being what they are and who they are, that changes and gets distorted over time, just like many religions started with great concepts and ideas, but people themselves have distorted it for their own egotistical or egoistic desires, right?
They'll go just so far, and whenever it is that they're practicing doesn't agree with their thinking in their lives, they back up and do something else.
Right, exactly.
But with this law of cause and effect, man can manipulate and do things, but cause and effect is no joke. It will come back. If you spit in the wind, you're going to get it back.
Absolutely.
Right? And then you learn you don't spit in the wind. So and it has to do with time. When it comes, when it's going to come back. Your good stuff, anything you've done that's fantastic, definitely is going to come back to you. If you've done something bad, that will come back too.
For sure. Yeah.
But
you can't escape it.
But okay. But the Nam Myoho Renge Kyo can help you reduce whatever there is in your life that's negative.
Right.
If you were supposed to break a leg, maybe you just sprain your ankle.
Perfect.
Isn't that much better than breaking a leg? So
I love it. And then, when you look at the prison system, the prison system is set up not in a humanistic way at all. And there are many places around the world, especially in Norway, where the prisoners are treated like human beings, right? Now, of course, if you commit a crime, there has to be consequences, cause and effect. You must, you must receive the effect of those causes. However, what made that human being commit a crime? What in their lives, did they have such a distorted childhood? Did they not have enough to eat or whatever it is? So places like Norway are doing all these progressive prison system, and the people are not going back to prison. Because they're treated like everybody should be treated like a human being, and to create that negative karma, to cause, suffering to others and to oneself, definitely you have to get the effect, but you are still a human being and worthy of respect and somehow to be able to turn it around. And that's, as Buddhists, we know everybody can turn things around, whatever it is, right? So what else should we share about this? Before I even ask you, so just a personal experience, and then I'll ask you if you have a personal experience about justice. But when my husband and I wanted to get married, he was previously married, and we went through a very difficult divorce, like really difficult divorce. And the encouragement that I got is that you can't win over somebody else's loss. It has to be a win-win situation. And that's how we chanted that somehow, the two parties, even if there was dissension and negativity, that the two parties have to win. And I think ultimately that's the key, so whenever there's a disagreement or to both parties to have a victory, that's what's really important, even if we can't really perceive what is that victory. What do you think?
Well, I think the world could really use win-win, because right now it's not win-win. We're not thinking in terms of everybody's happiness. What's going to be overall good for everybody, not just some people, not just the very rich, for everybody. Food, clothing, housing, education, health. I mean, these are the things that everybody needs.
Absolutely.
It makes for a better life and an interesting life, So.
And there were times in history where we did have a society which was based on a just world. King Ashoka in India, historically, right? Where people's rights were respected and people were able to live in harmony. Didn't start out that way, but it transformed. And there's always opportunity for transformation. Even in the darkest situation, there is always a possibility for transformation.
Yes.
Right?
True.
And let's see. So really to overcome discrimination at its root. I think that's what justice really means. And when we look at people like Gandhi, Martin Luther King, so highly respected, and they got it. They knew that it was the human being himself or herself to respect.
Well, I think that that in order to do that, you have to be able to respect your own life.
Absolutely.
You have to be able to see that what your life is capable of doing. And then if you can raise your consciousness to that level, then you know that somebody else can do the same. It's just a matter of time. It's what they were exposed to. For me, it was chanting Nam Myoho Renge Kyo. And then I was sure that that person over there was going to do it. The next person, we all have that ability to change our life, raise our life state, and become happy and help others to be happy.
Yes.
So it really starts with the individual.
And isn't that the true soul of justice? Justice for oneself, justice for others, not in a way that you want to cause others suffering and take pleasure in that. There are people, many people around the world, that if they're suffering, they want company, or they want to see somebody who's suffering even more. That's so distorted and incorrect. It's about each person taking full responsibility for their lives and realizing that they have a treasure, that there is a justice for oneself is the most challenging of all, to really, really appreciate one's own life. Therefore, if you can believe in justice for oneself or believe that you're responsible for your destiny, then you can see others in the same light. But if you don't see that in your own life, there is no way in hell you're going to see that in anybody else. And you're going to look at people as the enemy.
Oh, yeah.
You know, you yourself, if you can conquer your own devilish function inside your own life, then there'll be no reason ultimately to really see others as an enemy. Of course, we have a long way to go because people's egotistical desires, people's need for power and this and that, and not really respecting the dignity of life. But ultimately it comes down to respecting one's life, taking full responsibility for one's life.
I just want to go back a little bit.
Sure.
What I learned was that eye for an eye.
Yes.
That was not meant to be like, you know, rip somebody's eye out and be, you know. It was really to keep things from going out of bounds.
Right.
You know, to keep things in proportion to whatever it was. Not to really rip somebody's eye out because they ripped your eye out. But to keep things in proportion, you know. Not to overdo it, you know.
And I love what Gandhi said. He said, an eye for an eye makes the whole world blind, which is really true. You know, there's no such thing as retribution because it just keeps on, you know, going and going and going. There's no end to that.
Let me ask you this question. Did they also say a tooth for a tooth?
I think so.
We'd be blind and toothless.
And there are many like that.
Yeah.
Especially as you get older. Take care of your teeth.
Yes.
So,
okay, I think we've covered just about everything.
yes. So, and to recap, and then we always end with encouraging words. So, justice is rooted in compassion and understanding for others. True justice promotes peace and harmony within society, as you were saying, and that was Confucianism and many other, you know, philosophical trends. Individual actions contribute to the collective pursuit of justice. So as we behave as individuals, that contributes to the collective transformation. Justice should be pursued without discrimination or bias. Get a hold of that one, right? Really, that would be the ideal, right? We're far from that. Education is essential for fostering a sense of justice in individuals, and the pursuit of justice is a lifelong commitment to human dignity. Obviously, you know, it may take many, many, many lifetimes for us to get to the point where we can really respect ourselves and others as well. So, encouragement from our international president, who died a few years ago, but his encouraging words will live on forever. Countless human lives were sacrificed in the 20th century in the name of ideological and nationalistic causes. We must no longer tolerate the justice in name only that allows the use of any means to achieve an end and capitalizes on human lives. We must instead strive to build a solidarity of people's justice that serves to protect the dignity of all human beings. And this is from a book that Daisaku Ikeda was had written with somebody else called Peace, Justice, and the Poetic Mind. He has many books where he's had dialogues with individuals of great esteem and notoriety. So should I once again read that again? Or?
Yeah, you can.
Countless human lives were sacrificed in the 20th century in the name of ideological and nationalistic causes. We must no longer tolerate the justice in name only that allows the use of any means to achieve an end and capitalizes on human lives. We must instead strive to build a solidarity of people's justice that serves to protect the dignity of all human beings. So with that, we are
Don't mess with the Mommas.
Mommas. You could find us on TikTok and Instagram and YouTube.
And Spotify.
And Spotify. She knows Spotify because she's such a musical person. And everywhere where you can see or hear us. And we look forward to, hopefully you will write us, Mommas, MOMMAS podcast@gmail.com. We'd love to hear from you and really get your take on justice and how justice acts in many places around the world. We'd love to hear from our foreign friends as well. So don't forget, our motto is,
You are the protagonist of your life, not the victim of your destiny.
See you soon, you precious, wonderful listeners and viewers. You are the best. You really are.
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye. Bye. Bye.